But today, I'm the greatest of all time. Thank you.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Same us for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'll never stop it.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she likes to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Unscripted, which today is going to be the weekend recap. Joined by Jay McLovin today. This is Stat Guy. Jay, how the knees holding up? How you feeling? And
they're holding up, man. The other day I kind of buckled on it a little bit, so I had to be careful. I think I was kind of overdoing it a little too much, man, trying to get this rehab going. But, man, it's been a journey so far. We'll see.
So I guess we'll just dive right into it. The big stories of the weekend have obviously kind of surfaced around college basketball. We'll preview the men's side of things shortly, but we'll touch on the women's side first, where South Carolina completed the undefeated season yesterday by knocking off Caitlin Clark and Iowa. I believe it was 87-76, if I remember correctly. I can't remember the score off the top of my head, but you got to say, the way that Iowa started that game, especially with Caitlin Clark just going off for 18 points in the first quarter, it kind of had a feel that Caitlin Clark was going to have one of those days and where Iowa had a good chance to possibly run South Carolina out of the building. But as we've seen from Dawn Staley, she's obviously the best coach right now in women's college basketball. She made the adjustments she needed to make. She took Caitlin Clark out of the game really the last three quarters, which allowed South Carolina to play their style of basketball, and they completed the undefeated season. Just kind of thoughts on that game itself, and just thoughts on Caitlin Clark as her college career now has come to an end, and she focuses on the NBA or WNBA draft, which will take place in, I believe, a week.
Yeah, well, like you said, Caitlin Clark obviously is the one that everybody's focusing on, and he should be at 10. And she was 10 for 28, 5 of 13 at the 3-point line. So yeah, you're going to focus on Caitlin Clark. I'm just curious, they got themselves in trouble. They got it where they were actually down, and it wasn't until towards the very end that, they came back and got the win. And I don't know if you can continuously keep doing that. I'm not sure. Is it Purdue? Is that who they play next?
For who?
For the national championship? I know they're in the national championship now. Or is it South Carolina? I forgot who won that game.
Oh, for the women?
Yeah.
South Carolina beat Iowa. That was the national championship.
Yeah. Oh shoot! That's already over with.
Women was last night.
I know. I'm so bad. Yeah, last night I was in a lot of pain. Last night I didn't watch nothing but my eyelids, except when I could watch anyway. Well, damn. So South Carolina did it, huh? Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. I really thought this was Caitlin Clark. I thought she was really going to get them all the way, man. I mean, she did everything she possibly could. I know that.
I mean, she did, but she also did everything she possibly could to give the game away yesterday, too. She had a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes that she typically doesn't make, and that was part of the adjustment that Dawn Staley made. Dawn Staley put a bigger, more physical player on her after that first quarter, and it really took Caitlin Clark out of her rhythm. She was held scoreless until about 40 seconds left in the second quarter when she hit a deep three. But outside of that, she really wasn't that same player the last three quarters, which is the difference in the game. And with this undefeated season, South Carolina is now 122-3 the last 3 years.
Yeah. And I was looking at, I always say one of the biggest things for me about the game is how well you rebound. How well you rebound is going to be how well you control that game. And they really did a good job, especially looks like Kitts and Cardoso. Between the two of them, they had 27 rebounds. That's a lot, for a short basketball game like what college plays with only the 2 quarters or 2 halves or whatever. I mean, it's amazing that they got 17 and 10 and 17 between the two of them. One's a forward, the other one's a center. I mean, it's not bad. And I really thought Iowa had a good shot at taking it. I really did. But again, Caitlin Clark, she did take some other characteristics out of shots. I saw what you were talking about. But it's everybody else that didn't contribute, right, at the 3-point line. I mean, it went 9 of 23, 20, what's that, like 39% at the 3-point arc? I mean,
yeah.
It is what it is. You got to give Iowa their credits. In terms of Caitlin Clark and what she's going to mean to the WNBA, I mean, I think we've already talked about that last go around. I mean, this is a generational type of girl, so I fully expect her to do big things, honestly, in the WNBA.
And I think the WNBA is going to see their ratings start to climb from where they are now, because we kind of talked about this last week on one of our other shows, where just the emergence of Caitlin Clark alone has helped the women's college basketball ratings reach all-time highs. I think you're going to start seeing that in the WNBA from the moment she steps onto the court, because I don't know if you saw the news yesterday. The Indiana Fever are supposed to play the Las Vegas Aces to open the WNBA season. And knowing that Caitlin Clark's going to go number 1, they've already moved that game from the typical arena that the Las Vegas Aces play in to another arena that holds 8,000 more people.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's two really big draws coming out of the WNBA, right? You got Angela, was it Reese or Reese? How do you say it? Reese.
Yeah, Reese.
From LSU, and then you got Caitlin Clark. I mean, those are your 2 big studs right there coming out of WNBA. I expect both of them to have good NBA careers. Caitlin Clark, she just has to stay healthy. I think as long as she stays healthy and she's got all the right tools. She definitely has the right height.
And now we'll switch over to the men's side of things. And before we touch on the national championship game tonight, there was a bombshell that was dropped late last night in college basketball where John Calipari is packing up, leaving Kentucky after 15 years and heading to Arkansas, which moving from Kentucky to Arkansas was shocking enough, especially when the AD at Kentucky said his job was safe after another early tournament exit. But he's actually taking less money to go to Arkansas, which is kind of the bigger puzzle to this whole situation. What he's done at Kentucky is obviously incredible. What he's meant to that program is incredible. And he's really that first coach that kind of figured out how to win with this whole one-and-done format. Granted, he hasn't done it as much as he'd like, just because it's hard to win when you don't have that constant continuity like some of these other teams have. But now you got to wonder, what's up next for Kentucky, and do a lot of the recruits that he's brought to Kentucky now follow him to Arkansas?
Yeah, you're always going to get maybe 1 or 2 that will follow, that believes in this program, believes in what he's doing. I don't think it's going to hurt the program. I think Kentucky will move on and pick up. That's still a very good basketball program over there. Yes, they'll do a coaching search to find the right guy, but I think they'll be okay. I think Kentucky bounces back.
What I don't understand is, I guess, why Arkansas?
I don't understand why Arkansas either. Why would you want to go from a big program like Kentucky, which you've already built, unless you just like building programs, and maybe he wants to change the scenery to go build someplace else. And then again, he, like you said, he took less money. So clearly it's not about the money. So what else could it possibly be, unless you just want to test the waters and see if you can do what you did in Kentucky somewhere else,
And then that leads us to the national championship tonight, where it's going to be the number 1 seed Purdue versus the number 1 overall seed UConn, who is looking to become the first back-to-back national champion since the Florida Gators did it back in, I believe, 06, 07, whenever their run was. And, you look at this whole NCAA tournament. UConn, in my opinion, has been the most dominating team in this tournament. They really haven't had a game where they've been tested, apart from Alabama in the Final Four. They were really only tested the first half. The second half, they kind of pulled away. Purdue's had their moments where they've looked good. They've had their moments where they've struggled. But when all else fails, you just give the ball to Zach Edey and just kind of let him do his thing, and that kind of really saves Purdue. This is really going to be kind of an intriguing matchup, in my opinion. You have a guy in Zach Edey who's going to just dominate on the paint. But then you have that championship experience that Connecticut had last year. They have the perimeter shooting. They have just kind of the overall athletic ability. I'm really looking forward to this game tonight. If I had to lean one way or another, I would give the slight edge to Connecticut just because they did win the national championship last year. A lot of the players on this team were in that game last year. But I'm not going to be surprised at all to see Purdue win it just because Purdue has proven that they are a great team. They have proven to be one of the best teams in the country most of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. My thing is, number one, congratulations to NC State. You came in at number 11 and you made it as far as the Final Four. I mean, that's hard to do. So congratulations to NC State for as far as they made it. Again, Purdue, Edey, just a lot to handle. And then you got UConn going up against Alabama. I'm glad Alabama lost. Not that I'm a UConn fan. I'm just not an Alabama fan. Every time Alabama loses at something, it just warms my heart up a little bit. But anywho, yeah, congratulations to UConn for taking out Alabama. And I really do believe how well that game for UConn and Purdue comes down to how well UConn responds to Edey. That's a tall drink of water. And if they can do well against him, I think this is Utah's option to repeat. And I think repeating is definitely very, very well in their favor, honest. I think UConn is the favorite winning this one.
And that you look at the coach for UConn and you look at the coach for Purdue. Obviously, Matt Painter's been around Purdue, I believe, for like 21 years. He's one of the more recognizable coaches in the Big Ten. But UConn's got Bobby Hurley, a guy that was at Arizona State for a while and never really got the love and respect that he deserved because he actually turned that Arizona State program around when he was there. Now he goes to UConn. He still is not getting the love and respect that he deserves, especially when you look at the success that he has at UConn. And in my opinion, Bobby Hurley is one of the top 5 coaches in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a theory. I have this theory where I feel like as long as you're always having to prove yourself, the better you just are and the better you just play. And nobody can knock what UConn has done, right? And if you're winning these games and winning these championships, man, keep rolling. Even if they're not giving you the respect, trust me, them not giving you the respect is giving you the respect because they're not going to come out and tell you how good this is, okay? So and I'm pretty sure that guy, he feeds on that kind of stuff. I think he likes it. I think who doesn't like to go out there as the underdog or the lesser than and just can come away with the win? It just makes it even sweeter when you win, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
This makes it feel better, baby. And it keeps them hungry. Because I think a lot of times when you're used to winning, you tend to get complacent. And the fact that they haven't gotten complacent, that's a big thing in and of itself.
Right.
God, what a time to be alive.
And now I want to touch on somebody from your Houston Astros organization.
Oh, leave them alone. They're doing horrible.
They're not actually doing as horrible as the guy that I was going to talk about.
Go ahead.
The one pitcher that you have, I don't even know his name, but he goes and throws a no-hitter in his first start.
Oh, Blanco.
And then he comes out the other day and throws basically a no-hitter through 6 innings again before losing it?
Yeah.
I guess, what are your thoughts on Blanco, and do you think he is in line to become the ace of the future for Houston once Verlander leaves and kind of depending on what happens with Framber Valdez once he gets kind of towards the end of his contract?
I don't know if he becomes the ace. I mean, they've had Blanco for a little while now. He's not exactly the youngest guy in the world. I think he just turned 30, 31. I mean, he's got a little age on him. So I don't know if he becomes the ace. If he just becomes a solid rotational guy in our rotation, I would be happy with that. Just, do well in the rotation. And that's all I can ask from him. Honestly, the Astros, man, I don't know, man. There's some issues on that team. I don't know what they got to do to pull it together, but I don't know. I'm basically exactly where I was last year this time, where I feel like, the Astros should be so much better than what they're showing, and they just go out and poop the bed, and I don't understand. But the Astros are just getting off to slow starts, and hopefully they can rectify it. You can only do that so many times before you're just done. And I really want to go back for an 8th consecutive ALCS. So if you hear me, Astros, get your ass in check. Let's go.
I think part of the struggles for the Astros at this point is just Joe Espada. I mean, You go from a guy in Dusty Baker, who's a Hall of Fame manager, a manager who knew how to win in the playoffs, a manager who knew kind of what to do and what buttons to push with this team, to basically giving this team to Joe Espada, and I understand the reasoning for it. Espada was his bench coach the last 3 years. He's been around the team the last 3 years. But in some cases, I kind of do the same thing when the Cubs hired David Ross a few years ago, where they mainly hired David Ross because he had that familiarity with a lot of the players on the roster when they brought him in. I think Houston should have did a more thorough search for their new manager, as opposed to just handing it over to the bench coach. Just because you see that a lot. Like, you look at a lot of the teams that just like even Oakland, for example. Oakland's a bad example to use because Oakland's terrible, but they gave the job to their bench coach Mark Kotze, one spot Melvin for San Diego, and I think a big reason for that was they knew that they weren't going to be able to get a high level manager because of the situation Oakland's in, but they still could have did a more thorough search to maybe find somebody that's had some sort of managerial experience in the past. And I think ultimately, I do think Houston will figure it out at some point. But I think that's going to be Houston's downfall this year, is going from a guy in Dusty Baker to giving this team to a coach that had zero managerial experience.
Yeah, I thought the Braves had a couple of really good positional coaches over there. That first, I can't remember their names. Don't quote me on this, but I know he's the first base coach for the Braves. He looks really good. The bench coach for the Braves, I think it was Darren Ash. I think also also interviewed him. I don't know. I think I would have loved to have tapped into that Braves organization of coaches and brought that over as our manager. I don't know enough about Espada to really. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about him. He's quiet. I just don't know enough on him to really make an accurate decision on where he's going to go. The one thing I will say is when I watched his press conference, he's very boring. I almost fell asleep at his press conference because it was like no excitement whatsoever, or even no anger. Mm-hmm. And I think they actually came off a loss, and he should have been a little bit more upset, a little bit more, I would like to say a little bit more spark in that guy. And it just kind of looked like dead water, which kind of makes me feel nervous about that.
I guess the only red flag that I had when they made the announcement that they were going to hire Espada was, if you remember 2 years ago, he interviewed for the White Sox job.
Yeah.
And he ultimately lost that job to Pedro Grifol, who was the Kansas City Royals bench coach at the time, and Pedro Grifol is terrible. He doesn't even deserve to manage himself. But if Espada lost that job opening to Pedro Grifol, it kind of makes me wonder what Houston really saw in him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, the only thing I can think of is just the relationship that he had with Dusty on the bench. I don't know enough about this guy. I really don't, and I mean, I'm just seeing kind of what I'm learning, what I'm seeing now. I mean, he did okay during the preseason, but I thought we should not have gotten spanked against the New York Yankees. I felt like we had enough to take at least one or two games because we were in the lead. Two out of the 3 games we had the lead and we give it up. I mean, it's just stuff like that just really irritates me, man. I feel like we should be doing way better than what we're doing. And nothing against Frankie. Frankie, don't get mad at me when I say this, but I don't believe in the Yankees. I don't believe them as far as I can throw them, man. And I felt like we are a better team, I felt like, than the Yankees. And I felt like we just let them off the hook.
And now, I mean, the other thing that I want to talk about with Major League Baseball is I don't know if it was a letter or what it was, but the letter that Tony Clark put out about so many pitchers are getting hurt now because of this pitch clock and this and that, and how they're trying to kind of fight back now to get rid of the pitch clock and whatever it is. And I look at that and I kind of call complete bullcrap on it, because the pitch clock has nothing to do with the injuries. The injuries have to do with pitchers are throwing harder than they ever have before. They're throwing breaking balls a lot more frequently than they ever did before, which is putting more strain on your elbow, your shoulder, everything involved. You're riding pitchers a lot less now than what you did in the past, so their arms aren't in the physical shape they once were back when you were seeing pitchers go 7-8 innings every start, throwing 110 to 120 pitches every start. Now your pitchers are lucky to get through 6 innings. They're lucky to even hit 90 pitches because managers play that analytical game right now. If anything, that is good. If anything, I think it's the analytical side of things that is contributing to the pitcher's injuries, because you're pulling pitchers earlier than you should. And if your pitcher is getting pulled at 60, 70 pitches, you're not going to be built up arm strength wise to go deep into a season like you once were.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of blame preseason. I think the preseason should be longer than what it is. I think their conditioning isn't well enough in the preseason to really carry over in the regular season. Now, some of that's the players' fault. The players should be doing their own off-season conditioning. But still, at the same time, though, I feel like that shorter preseason and longer season, I think that had something to do with it. To be honest with you, we haven't seen this many injuries when they had the longer training camps.
Well, I mean, pitchers and catchers still report 10 days sooner, so they
I understand it's 10 days sooner, but still, it's on a shortened schedule, though. You know, I just think, you know, I mean, I understand they want to speed up the game, and it's fine to speed up certain aspects of the game. But don't start cutting away the training camp. That's what they need, their preparation. That's what they need to get ready for the season. That's when there's a lot of things that should be going on that aren't really going on because they don't have enough time to go on. You know, and you're not really getting full, you know, 100% evaluation or even working with them in training camp to get them ready for the regular season. Maybe there's a hitch in their swing. And, you know, like Dubon, he kind of came off a little slow. There's a little hitch in the swing. He corrected it just a day or two ago. But still, I mean, there's things that they should be finding out more often in training camp when it's longer than when it's shorter because you're just trying to get through the games because you don't have a lot of time. Right. And you're trying to evaluate all these dang rookies, and you don't even have a lot of time to evaluate the rookies.
And then obviously, speaking of pitching injuries, I think this is kind of when the whole injury thing came out. You have now the injury to Spencer Strider, who he does have UCL damage. They don't know the severity of the UCL damage right now. It doesn't appear that he's going to need Tommy John at this point. But anytime you hear the UCL with a pitcher, you kind of already start worrying that he's going to need Tommy John at some point.
Or at least know that his days are numbered towards
So if you're the Braves, knowing that Spencer Strider is only 24, do you just tell him to have the surgery now and get it over with, knowing that he's probably going to need it down the road anyways? But now you have Shane Bieber, who is also now about to have Tommy John. And Shane Bieber, to me, is even more important to focus on than Spencer Strider at this point because Shane Bieber was one of the most sought-after pitchers this offseason in terms of a trade. He was also one of the more likely pitchers to be dealt at the trade deadline, knowing the position the Guardians are in financial-wise. So you knew that kind of Shane Bieber was going to be high on a lot of teams' lists. Now that he is having Tommy John, the last 2 years of his contract, he's not going to pitch. So I guess what does that do for his value now in terms of, do you see a team maybe trading for him next year, trying to sign him to a 1-year contract for the year after it and using it as a 1-year prove-it deal? Or do you think he just hits free agency and kind of a similar situation, you see a team sign him to a 1-year deal to see what he can do, but ultimately the Guardians should have gotten rid of him when they had the chance because now they're going to be stuck with him and not being able to get anything really in return.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, let's be honest. If you're getting Tommy John, you're not pitching the last 2 years. Nobody's going to really want to pick you up right now because number one, they don't know what your market value probably should be, and number two, you haven't pitched in forever. They don't know what they're getting, so it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be will Bieber take the money that gets offered to him on this next contract coming off that Tommy John? Right? I mean, it's a lot of unknowns. I don't think he gets the big contract. I don't think he gets the long-term contract. I think he gets the 1 and 2 year deals, 1 or 2 year, because teams are going to want to see before they make that long-term investment. They're going to want to see if he's back or if he's not back after that Tommy John. So now you're just at a wait and see game. But it will be a 1-year deal, I think, when he comes back, and it probably won't be for the kind of money he's looking for because of this injury.
Have you watched much of the UFL yet or not really?
No, I was actually getting ready to start watching it. I've been so tied up the last couple of weeks. Have you? Obviously, I know it started. I haven't had a chance to see how the Roughnecks are doing.
Roughnecks, I believe, are 0-2. They might be 1-1.
All right, so we suck again.
Well, they lost their first game, but I'm trying to see if they won yesterday. I didn't watch that game yesterday. Yep, the Roughnecks are 0-2. They lost 23-18.
See, you should have kept the name Gamblers.
No, you should have kept Wade Phillips as your coach.
Well, there's a lot of things I should have kept.
But yeah, there's one player that I want to talk about, and he is the main reason why this league was created in the first place.
Okay.
And he is the kicker for the Michigan Panthers. I cannot remember the name of my top head, which I'm looking up right now because I don't want to botch his name and I don't want to screw him up because he does not deserve to have his name screwed up right now. But so this league was designed to find basically hidden gems. And your Dallas Cowboys found it last year with their kicker, Brandon Aubrey, who was the Birmingham Stallions kicker for 2 years, and then the Cowboys signed him, and he was perfect at kicking last year. So, like, that was kind of what this league was designed for. But the Michigan Panthers kicker's name is Jake Bates, who was a decent kicker in college. He wasn't great, but he was always known for a big leg, and a lot of people said nobody was really going to take a look at him. Well, the first week of the UFL season, he makes a 64-yard field goal.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
This past week, he makes a 62-yard field goal with about 7 or 8 yards to spare. Then later in that game, he makes a 58-yard field goal. Wow. So if nobody was paying attention to the UFL before, they're going to start paying attention now because people are going to start keeping tabs on this kicker because if he can consistently make 55, 60, 60-plus yard field goals, every team in the NFL that needs a kicker is going to be calling him.
Of course they are, especially when they need those 3 extra points to win the game or tie it up. You better believe they are.
But yeah, these are the stories that I love about the UFL because this is ultimately why this league was created. Because had the UFL not been created, there's no way that anybody would have known this guy can kick as far as he can kick.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way people, unless you go watch him kick on like a practice field, but there's no way like the nation would get to see this guy kick. There's no way that ESPN or anybody else for that matter would know how far he can kick unless this league was created. And that's the main reason why I enjoyed having both the XFL and the USFL going on at the same time as opposed to them merging together. And even when the quality of play isn't great, like through 2 weeks, the quality of play I don't think has been as good as I thought it was going to be. I think last year when they had the 2 separate leagues, the quality of play was better than what it is right now. But it is what it is. You knew at some point they were going to have to merge the 2 leagues anyways, but I thought the quality of play would be better. And maybe it will once the season goes on, but it's stories like these, which that is why this league is created. And I think you're going to start seeing more and more players from the UFL start getting NFL looks just because
absolutely
there is stories like this that you're going to follow.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a matter of time. It's just going to take them a little while to get off and running. But I think once they did, as long as they don't try to do what they did last time when the USFL tried to compete with the NFL and put their games with them, as long as they don't do anything crazy like that, I think they have a really good chance of being strong and successful, at least being a good feeder system for the NFL.
It's all the time Jay and I got for you today. We should be back next week. I don't know what we're going to do next week, but we should be back next week. And Jay, once he gets healthier than he is now, is going to start getting back on a normal schedule. But Jay, thanks for hopping on today and take care of yourself and get healthy.
One thing I want to say real quick before you take off. Free my boy. Free him, man. Pete Rose. Free Pete Rose and ban Shohei Ohtani. If you don't ban Shohei Ohtani, there's going to be a massive uproar of upset people that think that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, at least as a player. Come on.
I'm one of the people that think he should be in the Hall of Fame anyways. Not necessarily for the manager side of things, but he's the all-time hits leader.
I just loved it. I just love that man that said, "Oh, if only Pete Rose would have had an interpreter back in those days."
So, like the thing that I don't understand is, yes, I understand betting on baseball is illegal, which you can't do, but he's still the Major League Baseball all-time hits leader. You can't take that away from him. It's not like betting on baseball made him hit 4,200 times. He did that on his own. You can't take that away from him. Just like the whole steroid argument and things like that. And I think you and I are kind of on the same wavelength that is that where steroids, all they do is make you stronger. It doesn't make you hit the ball. It doesn't make you hit the ball any farther. If you can't make contact, you still got to make contact. And in Roger Clemens' situation, steroids make you throw harder. But if you can't throw strikes, it's still not going to matter. Roger Clemens was going to be a Hall of Famer before he took steroids. Barry Bonds and some of those other people were going to be Hall of Famers before they took steroids. So to punish them for taking them is, in my opinion, just completely asinine, because if you really wanted to, the years that they were on steroids, take those numbers away from what they did, and you would still see that they have a Hall of Fame resume.
Oh, I agree with you. I believe they should be in the Hall of Fame. I do believe that there should be asterisks because, again, I think steroids does give you a little bit like that power advantage over a Willie Mays or somebody like that or Hank Aaron. But I do believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, absolutely. Along with Roger Clemens and all the rest of them. Let him in. Let Pete Rose in. I'm telling you, free Pete Rose. Free him.
All right, Jay, take care.
All right, be good, brother.